All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Another Wednesday live stream. I need to give some love to Blueprint. So probably do a week or two of streams on this. So today I think it'll be mostly like maintaining Blueprint as I've done in the past. So let's just get in. Let's take a look at the PRs and the open issues here. So let's start with PRs. There's some PRs in here. There's some things I want to do too. So I think there's some feedback on this stuff. Let me see here. Okay, what did I say? Thanks. Test fixture. La la la. Added strict. Okay, do they have a test fixture? Let's see what they got here. I've talked about this before. Let's do another little PSA for this little public service announcement. I would merge this immediately if this description were formatted and just had a little more care in it. Here's the thing. Here's what this description is telling me. This is not, it's not formatted. It's not in like backticks for code. It's not in a code block. It's not super clear. Before this fix for columns like this. Just, if this would have been good and the tests were passing, I might have just scrolled through the code and hit merge. But now, because there wasn't care given to the description, and I don't necessarily recognize this name, I'm skeptic. I'm very skeptic to merge this. So now I'm going to go through it more strictly, and its chances of being merged have dropped significantly just because of that description. I'm just being honest, and I think pretty much all maintainers would agree with me that, you know, having a nice description, doesn't have to be a long description, but just well care crafted kind of gives me confidence that like, okay, this isn't your first PR you've ever issued, and like, you maybe know what you're doing, so I'm just going to triple check some code parts and like hit merge because the tests are passing. So anyway, I'm sure this code change is okay. It has tests, but like just admitting that that's not giving me a lot of confidence when it's like a very junky, unformatted description. Okay, so what are they doing here? Let's look at the fixture first. They got this draft file. Okay, so this, I assume what they're getting after here is this thing has an underscore. Custom column has underscore. What's the problem? This has an underscore or this has an underscore? There should absolutely be no problem with underscores. There should be no problem with underscores in the code base. I'm shocked that this is a problem. Let's see what's going on here. So it's got party ID, constrain, cascade on delete. I assume they cascade on delete. That cascade on delete feels like maybe that doesn't need to be there. They must have like my guess is the test that they wrote has like a configuration for those toggled on. That seems kind of odd that those are in there. Let's see what's going on here. Yeah, see, they toggle constraints true. Was that part of the problem though? Was the problem that constraints didn't get it right? Fix model generator for some columns with underscore. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but the test looks good. The fixtures look good. What was the actual change? If column name is equal to the table name, if column name is equal to the singular under, okay, so let's go back and look at the draft's name. So singular name and that. Why do they need the column name is equal to the singular name? See, to me, like you wouldn't, you don't need to be writing I think this is a false issue. You really don't need to be writing Blueprint this way. It's smart enough to know that convention. That's a conventional naming. There's no reason to say ID foreign. There's no reason to say ID foreign anything there. I'm pretty sure you could just say ID or foreign, or even ID foreign without the colon. It's weird that the colon is supposedly broken. Or sorry, the underscore, this full name reference is broken. Let's go get an app. This is, I don't think this needs to be merged. I think this is a user problem. Let's get into, what do we have here? The smart migrations. I think this is Laravel 12. Let's just run composer update. Get everything here. We'll drop in Blueprint. I'm gonna borrow this and tweak it the way I think it should be written, and we're gonna see what happens. We're gonna see what gets spit out the other side. The latest is 12.12. Okay, so let's just follow the install guide. Drop that in. Let's do PHP Artisan Blueprint init. What is this? Undefined namespace Blueprint. Oh, I grabbed the assertions. Sorry. That should not be. I need the assertions, but I didn't get Blueprint yet. All right, now let's init. Okay, PHP Artisan migrate. Yep, create it. I still need to go back and mess with that. But anyway, okay, traced one model, got the user's model. Now let's do pb paste in the draft YAML file. Let's go get their example. And then we're going to tweak it a little bit. Their example is this. I'll copy all of that. pb paste. Let's just VI this draft file real quick. We definitely don't need a comment, and I feel like ID will reference it correctly. I think foreign does need to be in there, in fairness. But let's just do PHP Artisan Blueprint build, and let's cat this migrations table. Okay, we have a foreign ID to party ID from agents. There you go. See, there's nothing wrong with the code here. It just did it. Yeah, my model age. Okay, okay, sorry, employment. Let's check employment. What is the other one? Yeah, foreign ID, agent underscore party underscore ID. What's wrong with this? Is that not right? What's the difference between what we have and what they kind of expected? Create table agents, foreign ID, constrained, fine. Create table, foreign ID, agent, party ID. We got it. Constrained, agents, part. Okay, maybe it's the constrained thing that's wrong. Maybe it's the constrained part that's not working the way they expect, which is why they have a test that way. Okay, so maybe there is a little bit of nuance here. Let's turn on constraints and see if we're gonna get it right here. PHP Artisan vendor, is it :publish maybe, question mark? Blueprint config. All right, let's VI config blueprint. Let's find constraint. Let's turn this to true. All right, and then let's do erase. I don't typically do this, but since it's just models, we can run it again. All right, and then let's cat database migrations 2025, 10, 22, 05, 3. Okay. Foreign ID, agent party ID, constrained. Now the question becomes, what are the defaults for, what are the defaults for something like constrained? We're gonna have to bring up PHP Storm for that one. Like, do I need to be passing that into PHP Storm? Is that what the bug is there? The difference is constraint. Okay, yeah. Yeah. I think we're on the same page here. Chat, let's catch up for a second. Let's close all this down. Oh, the stuff we were working on in last stream, I just popped this up and realized this got merged. So the line numbers are now part of the exception page. Got merged faster than I could finish the description, by the way. So Taylor's super quick with that stuff. Okay, let's get into database. Let's see what the defaults are if you don't pass anything into constrained. Maybe that's part of the problem. The iMac is humming. All right, let's let it update and catch up here for a second. Yeah, if constraint needs to be in there, then in my opinion, the real issue here is not so much that it can't support the underscore. Again, it's an improperly worded PR. It doesn't really get down to the issue. Okay, so if table's null, then it goes by this table. So the foreign ID would know, and then the column is the references model or ID. Okay. So going back to their code, going back to the draft file. Okay, they turned party ID false. I see. They've got a custom party name. Okay, sorry. Okay, I missed that. So by convention in Laravel, this should actually just be agent ID, but they are calling it agent party ID. So they're needing to specify the full bit here. Okay, that makes a little more sense now. Again, properly worded PR would have been great. Let's go into the draft. Let's erase it one more time. If the author of this PR is on the stream, I'm sorry if I'm giving you trouble, but it's taken me, what, 10 minutes to kind of dissect what your PR is actually supposed to be doing? All right, let's go into cat database that, or I guess we could. Okay, so it really is no different if you pass everything in. So to my point, passing everything in versus not passing everything in is achieving currently the same thing. So I assume that theirs does something a bit better. But let's see this. That feels kind of strange. Is it a foreign ID? Is that really supposed to be a foreign ID? If you're making a custom ID on the table, yeah, see, that's difficult. This is kind of, there's a lot actually going on here. They're turning off the primary key that you get by default. And my assumption is, based on the fact that they're making a foreign back to this, my assumption is that this ID is, they intend for that to be the primary key. And I don't think Blueprint really gets that correct. I think there's a couple things here that Blueprint, again, Blueprint is all about following Laravel conventions. I'm not saying this shouldn't work, but all the more reason this PR is kind of addressing like potentially 3 different things. It's attempting to address, it seems, making sure that the constraints when you have an unconventional column name are passed in, right? So that seems to be what they're doing first. They expect that some stuff gets constrained inside of here. But it's funny because their test fixtures currently don't really look any different than mine except for this part. So again, the PR seems to address making sure that constrained gets passed in the appropriate data. Right now it is not. And if we go look at this, again, I just kind of feel like the way in which they're doing it, that's not really correct the way they're doing it. They're just assuming that if anything has an underscore in it, just, you know, don't put it in constrained. Like that's not the right solution. I think they're just getting lucky here. Okay, so I'm gonna comment back on this with more detail and close it effectively. I'm not gonna waste time doing that on stream, but I'm gonna give them some. I'm gonna read through this a little more carefully, and you know they did put some effort into this, so I'm gonna give them a fuller comment of like, look, I think there's 2 things that two things that actually need to be addressed here. One, if you're turning off the ID and you're attempting to say that you have another ID column, I think this is where Blueprint is just getting it wrong. And to just kind of be super thorough for the streamers here, like my guess, I don't know if Blueprint has what's considered like a primary in the documentation. So let's just see. I don't think so. Extending Blueprint. I don't think there's a primary. Oh, that maybe. You can also specify modifiers for each of the columns. I'm just curious if I put primary in the draft file. I don't think this will work, but I'm just curious. Can I say primary for agents? It makes it a string. So what if I said it was ID primary? It goes back to foreign ID. Yeah, all I'm wondering is like, I'm kind of wondering 2 things. One, if you have a combination, if you're making your own primary key on a table, you definitely need some combination. This should probably be a little bit more well documented. Again, I don't tend to give a lot of love to the unconventional things in Blueprint because its speed is all about following Laravel conventions. But there's enough in here that this can work. As we saw, we could just specify primary and we get, we get something that's roughly correct. Now, what I'm wondering is because we've tagged this as primary, does Laravel itself know what the name should be, right? So part of me wonders if we like get rid of these other migrations and we go back down into here. Part of me wonders like if we dump table and column and we run the migrations, what does it output here? Can it guess it now that we've properly marked it as a primary key? I don't know. PHP artisan migrate. Yeah, so null and ID. So it doesn't know what the other table is. And it just assumes by default ID. So yeah, you would have to pass it. Let's get in here and pass it what they're passing it. So really you have to pass it like agents and then party ID. And then now we should see, oh, MFS. Agents and party ID, okay. So, yeah, I just want to I'm going to give that some more attention. I'm not ready to merge that. All right, fix pivot table, migration, building. Okay, more migration issues. Let's see what's going on here. Key segment before snake. I hate all this manipulation of the resource. Okay, when the belongs to many attribute was given a special name, the ID column, see again, more unconventional crap. When the belongs to many attribute was given a special name, the ID column type identifying wasn't working and would fail back to the usual integer ID, causing errors. Now, by considering it as a key, the string before colon, it should work. Okay, let's approve. They don't have any tests, so I'm definitely not going to merge this. Let's see if this is a fuller thing here. Okay, that's incorrect syntax. So is that. There really should be no reason to do that. This one makes a little bit more sense. There really should be no reason to do group there. Okay, I have a many relationship between app roles and app users. Each user has many roles and each role belongs to many users. However, adding users after the line causes Blueprint to generate a migration where instead of the usual foreign ULID, a foreign ID is generated. If I remove the name, it works flawlessly. Okay. I also have foreign key constraints active. Okay, so where's the actual issue? After the line belongs to many app users. Okay, sure. Okay, well let's just take this. Let's put this back in the draft file. Can I copy this? Yeah, all right. Let's put this back in the draft file. Okay, so yeah, clearly these are wrong. None of this other stuff really matters, to be honest. What matters is just that these things have ULIDs. So let's just get rid of all this other crap. So we got relationships. I really don't think this group needs to be there. And then this seems incorrect. Okay, so again, there's a couple things here. First of all, some of the YAML is messed up. So not necessarily the ULID part, but the colon under unique, some of that's wrong. 2, this is inconsistent. Here he calls it users, and here he calls it user. Which one is it? I'm assuming it's users based on the description. So basically all this is doing is saying that's the custom table name. The other thing, too, is again, the model convention names don't line up with the table names. Here he's using conventional table names, but here he's using a custom app name. So in Blueprint, really the way this should be written is that underneath here, there needs to be like a meta, and then there's table, and this is called users. And then same thing up here. Really the way it should be written, and I think I commented back on this, it should be written this way. And part of me thinks if you wrote it that way, Blueprint's now smart enough to figure out what the referencing table names should be. I feel like I worked on a live stream on that at one point in time. It was a pretty nasty fix. Maybe I never finished it. I don't know. We're going to run this and see what happens. So, build. Okay, great. So let's go look at all the things it made and see if it feels right. Okay, so the roles table, they got ULID, ID, primary, nice, okay. We got a users table, ULID, ID, okay, that's fine. Do you have to say primary here? Yeah, I think so. Okay, that's fine. Groups table, groups, okay, so this is users, roles, it got all that right. And then now we've got app role, app user. Okay. So see, that should really be called. See, this is a tough one. Based on their model naming convention, Laravel's going to look for app role, app user, alphabetical of the table names. But that's not what. So here they have an app. See, yeah, this is where like that unconvention starts to fall apart. Some of the things that get built for you automatically by Blueprint, they're not always like passed down. There's an argument that this is correct, right? Because if it depends on the model. If the model's kind of auto magic in its relationship by just using model names, then this is the correct table name to not have to change anything else. But the other side of the argument is, given the fact that the user has custom table names here, then they're using custom table names or conventional table names in this case for their database structure, which then would make me believe that that should actually say role underscore user and then role ID and user ID, not the app part, because they've kind of separated their application naming convention from their database naming convention. One's conventional, one's unconventional. The models are unconventional. So, I don't know. See, this should be that, and that should be foreign ULID. So I think the problem they're saying is this. I think his issue, leaving some of this naming convention aside again, the issue is, I think he's saying that should be foreign ULID. So why is it not? It got it right here. So going back to the draft file, it's these two that got kind of messed up. So has many worked out correctly, but belongs to many did not. Is that ultimately what he's getting after? Adding users after the line block causes Blueprint to generate a migration where, instead of the usual foreign ULID, a foreign ID was generated. Okay. Again, though, do you need that? So here's what I want to do. I want to take these off. And now see what it generates by comparison. Because again, this is a conventional thing, and then Blueprint, I think, should be smart enough now with appropriate metadata to actually name those correctly. Or not name them correctly, but reference them correctly. So let's see what this second time does. All right, we got the ULID in the actual table, ULID in the actual table. This is just an ID, it's just conventional. There you go, foreign ID, foreign ID. Foreign ID, and then that's for group. Group should be that. The only real problem I see here is this naming convention, and I think there's an argument for both sides. If someone wanted, I think the comment that I'm actually going to leave for this person is, I'll probably close the PR and just say, look, this works. There's no need to specify that if you properly specify the meta table for that. That's how it should be built, right? Should this other way work? Yeah, it should. But again, it's always, you're kind of defining something in isolation with, you're defining that table name as kind of a one-off, just for that relationship, okay? Defining it in the meta has a better chance that permeates down through all of the references. Right here, you're really only saying, hey, this relationship has this specific reference. You know, it's really meant more for like a column name, as we were seeing. And again, not to say that works perfectly. Clearly, there's another PR for this, but we're getting into like a crazy unconventional territory, and there's just no reason to say any of these. In fact, you know, half the time they're being specified wrong here. That's the whole point. If you follow the conventions, you don't have to type all this crap in Blueprint. You just say the you just say the column name and its type, and it's everything else is just automatic. All of these PRs have to do with people like just trying to do like very unconventional things with something that's based on speed of generation by convention. Anyway, long story short, the only real issue I see out of here is that there's an argument to be made that that is not the correct. It doesn't matter because it's in this pivot table, but they did say that that was the user's table name. Part of me feels like it should have not used the model name and instead used the custom table name to make this. I feel like this table should really look more like this. And again, being alphabetical order would actually show up like that. There's an argument to be made that that's what Blueprint should have generated if I provided the proper meta information. So basically the rule would be if you have meta custom table name, that custom table name permeates through the database layer. Now that's not going to make the model happy. The model's going to now need to, you know, do some fudging there, right? So that's where it gets weird, right? If we go into the model just real quick, we'll see in group has many app user, but now, you know, now you're going to have to say something like, yeah, you're going to have to specify these names being different than what this is, right? So I don't think foreign key is a problem, but I think the local key, I always get these backwards. You'd have to now say like user ID, and then I think there's table in here. Is there table name? No, there's no table name. How does it know the table? Oh, sorry, that wasn't a belongs to many. Where's the belongs to many? Not there. Oh, that's up here, sorry. App user. Yeah, belongs to many. There we go. Yeah, table's the second thing. So if you don't let Blueprint do it the way it's currently doing it, then you now have to say, you know, that. I got to specify the rest of this. So it's kind of like, it's a pretty big PR one way or the other. Like right now it's doing what it does, but I think there's an argument for that other side. But I'm not going to make that change because, again, it's unconventional and it works using the conventions at hand. So I don't think either of those need to be merged, which means that this gets closed. So update the documents, update the docs. Okay. Enhance blueprint stubs. All of the rest of this stuff has been out here for years. There's a reason it's been out here for years. From my perspective, Blueprint is feature complete. You kind of have to like think of it kind of like something like Lumen. Lumen hasn't gotten updates in years. Sure, there's a Lumen 12, but like it hasn't had any actual changes other than like dependency bumps and maybe a security patch in probably like 5 years because it's feature complete. It's just an API endpoint lightweight version of Laravel. I wouldn't even say it's probably faster at this point, which was kind of its main draw, 10 years ago. So the point is, Blueprint, short of coming in here and updating it to generate modern code syntax for Laravel or use modern conventions in Laravel, none of this stuff kind of matters to me. Like I don't need PHP stand, PHP doc blocks. If the community wants to add it, great. I don't care about extending something for DDD or unconventional things as we've seen. There's a couple things in here that like, yeah, great, but nested resources, okay, maybe. Again, the whole point of Blueprint is to kind of hit the ground running with your ideas. As developers, we have the pre-architecture in our head of like what the models of our application look like. You come in the Blueprint, you get into your draft file, and you start specifying your models, and then honestly you come down here and you say controllers, and you basically just say, user web and group, web, and you just make a bunch of resources for these things. You really don't specify a whole lot in here. It's kind of like a one and done. It really is just to architect your application based on what's in your head. And then from there, you just get in there into the code and you start customizing it. This is not meant to it's a one-shot deal. It's not meant to be like an active generator where I'm always changing the blueprint file and I'm getting more application, right? Like it's not like native PHP or something where I'm generating multiple apps from a single source code. Like I'm not generating a bunch of apps over and over and over again from my draft file. You're coming in here as a scratch pad, making some changes, and you're building an app to go and get in that code. Now, whether you get in that code with some kind of AI and you do more with it, then great. But that's where Blueprint's power is, right? If I were trying to generate much more than that, I would just go use AI. But I think where Blueprint still has a really good foothold is just a quick way to dump out your ideas and say, okay, this model has these columns, this model has these columns. You have all that. And even if you were talking to AI, you would have to write all that out anyway. This is much more concise. It's much more developer focused. And when this generates code, you can now use something like Cursor with Laravel Boost and start making nested resources. So long story short, the point is to be very, very fast in the draft file. Once I have to get in here and start crafting like all of these customizations, there's an argument that you should just generate it conventionally and go in and change what you need to change in the code because it's going to be faster. So that's why all of these will probably just always sit out here. Now, a couple of these are going to get closed based on what we just talked about. But anyway, the joys of maintaining a package. I'm very happy with this package. I know I've kind of griped there for a minute, but 3,000 stars, a bunch of forks, like it's got a lot of good activity in here. So again, I'm very glad to maintain the package and keep it running. I use it, every other week, to be honest, more so than AI when I'm like generating new apps, just because this gives me a beautifully conventional application of all the models I need in it, with some controllers and tests and seeders and all the things to boot. And I don't have to do much. I write like 30 lines of YAML and it's good to go. What I do want to do is drop support for Laravel 11. Laravel 11's reached end of life. It hasn't received active development for a long time now, and now it no longer receives security patches or bug fixes. It's not supposed to anyway. I think if there was a major security flaw, they would probably still patch it, just because Laravel's good about that. But technically it has reached full end of life as of August, which is like 6 weeks ago now. So let's drop Laravel 11 support. Blueprint. I might have already done this. I want to drop 11. The differences between 11 and 12, in fairness, are not that large. Why I care about dropping older versions kind of strictly is the syntax that gets output, right? So, for example, there are a few attributes, PHP attributes, that are not available in 11 that are now in 12. I can't generate your model with those attributes, or I gotta like have bifurcated code paths that now are like, okay, if you're 11, then don't put this attribute and put this code. And it's just a lot to maintain. So I like being able to drop these kind of older versions because it streamlines the blueprint code and kind of unifies the output. So you're not getting like one output on one version and another output on another version. I mean, it makes sense that it does that, but I don't like having to maintain all that. So to make this kind of future compatible, this is another little tiny thing as a developer. It's risky because you don't know what's coming in higher versions, but it does make your package future compatible from day one. So like one of the biggest things, again, as someone who runs Laravel Shift, the largest reason why someone can't upgrade is because of packages. It's not because their application code is somehow incompatible with breaking changes. That's where Shift comes in. It's just going to find all those breaking changes and fixes them. this packages, dependencies are where it's a problem. So like, if I know I got a package that really doesn't depend on anything crazy in Laravel and I know it's not going to go anywhere, like I know all the core things. I don't know, but probability wise, like it's pretty certain that this package is still going to run on 13. What would be more of an issue, more of a risk, the higher probability is that Blueprint generates code that is outdated. That's okay though. Maybe that doesn't mean it breaks or not. So I get why, the point is I get why package authors don't necessarily like to do something like this, but if you're running like something with very little dependencies and it's only dependent on like, it only matters that you're running PHP 8.2 or higher, like don't be afraid to use the greater than equal to sign. It'll make you won't have to get a bunch of PRs that are like, oh, Laravel 13 came out, 35 seconds ago, your package isn't compatible. Yeah, you don't want that. Okay, so we bumped everything in there. So let's do git checkout. I think we can crank this out pretty quick. Git checkout, drop, we'll say drop L11. All right. And then let's get into the workflows. I think that's next. So build, we can drop 12 here. See you later. Don't think there's anything else in here. Demo, we can drop 12 here. Again, we got faster cycles now, faster CI. Let's bump this to 4. And I think this is 25 now. So let's clean that up. So let's bump that a little bit higher. Let's do the same thing in here. Where is that? 25. And let's do a composer update. So we're going to bump those. We're going to drop that. And then next I'm going to search the code base for any kind of code that's like Laravel 11 specific. Normally that's tagged in some kind of way. The tests are pretty good about that, like -Laravel 11 or whatever, but we'll see. Okay, so let's do add composer, git commit, drop Laravel 11, git commit -m, we'll update workflows or update GitHub actions. There we go. And then let's do vendor bin pint just to make sure there aren't new things. Pint has minor releases, but even in those, there's like some small things that they end up tweaking. So let's just let it do that. Let's see what happened here. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, this lowercase, that's fine. So 4 column returns. Yeah, that's fine. Whatever. Not my favorite that this is a default, but again, it's all about automation, all about conventions. I'm not gonna fight it. I'm not gonna like go set up my custom pint just for that one rule. Like, it's fine. I can live with it. Pint. All right, now let's push this up. Git push -u origin head. And did we start a PR yet? Where's my little PR line? Whatever. We'll go open a PR. Create a PR. Drop support for Laravel 11. Let's just get this running in the background, make sure that build's still running, and while we're doing that, let's just search for anything, anything that, I think there's like, it's either -11 or underscore 11, maybe Laravel 11. This might have just been older stuff for 10. I really feel like the tests probably, let's just search the test for 1.1. Nope. Let's go back here. Hold on a second. Realized my notes app was open and I don't think I've tabbed over to that, but I don't know what node it's on, so let's just force quit it. Okay, don't need any leaks today. I'm prone to leaking stuff. Okay, cool. So that seems to all be running on 12. Let's see if it finishes. While it's finishing, I just want to go back and look at my drop Laravel 10 support PR. Nope. That's not a PR. Thought it was PR. Is there anything in here from older versions? Let's look at history. I'm trying to determine what the syntax might have been for tests that were like Laravel 10 specific. But I don't... I'm assuming we don't have any. Let's check the draft files and see if there's anything like Laravel 11 or something in here. I don't see any like -11 anywhere. The only thing that I would really want to look at would be like, that comes to mind is casts. Like, is there more like Laravel 12 specific stuff we can do? Sure, but that's feature like enhancement. I'm trying to make sure that there's not anything immediate that's like, okay, we don't need to be doing it that way. It doesn't seem like there is. I think what I want to look at probably is maybe models. And let's find one with the casts. Model unguarded, model with meta. I mean, they all have stuff. Yeah, see, cast is already a method. Do we have any like observer kind of stuff? I wonder if we have any like observer. Observe. Is there anything in test? Let's take that off. I don't think so. I was just trying to think of like, there are some attributes in 12. And in fairness, I think some of them were introduced even in later versions of Laravel 11. So they're not really necessarily quote unquote new in 12. They just were announced with 12. So I don't think there's anything more to do here. I think if all these tests pass, like, it's fine, which looks like they do. Yeah, this is really kind of a superficial change. It's just, again, it's just allowing me to kind of have a line in the sand where I can now say, okay, 2.40 and above is Laravel 12 only. And obviously there's a lot of overlap. You can run an earlier version. You're going to be able to run an earlier version of Blueprint and it's fine. So, yeah. So 2.13 will be Laravel 12 and above. And now I know I can go through the code if I notice anything when I'm using it to make it more Laravel 12 specific, to enhance it, to use PHP attributes or whatever might be new, very, very new in Laravel 12 that wasn't at all in Laravel 11. Cool. Okay, so I think that's what I'll focus on next time. I think what I'll do is I'll kind of go check my notes of some recent things I've generated, and then I had to go back and like tweak somehow. And then I'll probably just comment on some of these other PRs and point out that I think what the real fix for those is. Whether it's adding the metadata like we saw, or, making sure that you're properly marking something as a primary column, and then from that direction, make sure that Laravel passes it in if it's customized. That's really the takeaway, I think, on this one. It's a lot more complex than what their solution is. So, cool. Anyway, thanks everybody for joining live. I will jump on next Wednesday. Well, no, I'm going to be at Wire Live next Wednesday. So I will not be live streaming, but I might record something, throw it out on YouTube. So I might pre-record something since I'll be at a conference. So catch you next Wednesday.